Hey Dan, it's Thursday, December the 1st of December, and I have been anxiously checking the lake every morning. Yesterday I got up, and on my way to work I noticed that the small lake, Winona, had a small skim coat of ice on it. In a panic, I checked the weather. It was supposed to be 40 yesterday, and it was actually high 40s yesterday. It was really nice. But I went out and checked the lake, and the lake temperature has gone down to 40.9, but there was no ice at Lacan. So that's good news for this Sunday when we plan on going out and swimming, of course. But that's not why I'm making this video. I've got a ton of things going. Beth and Galen and Marshall are going to Haifa on Saturday, and there just seems like to be a ton of stuff going on. Galen has an orchestra concert tonight, during which he gets to wear a tux, which is kind of cool. Let's see what else is happening. Well, I can't really think of anything else. I'm making dinner, of course. But I wanted to comment again about the Penn State or the Sandusky affair, we'll call it. I've been meaning to write you back on that. I just haven't gotten to it, or to talk to you back. And just never got around to it. So I thought before I start making dinner, I'll make a quick video on it. I think that for me, the very first thing that is, the biggest issue is with McQueary. Why, when he came in and saw what he says he saw, at that point, why he did not render Sandusky senseless on the floor of the bathroom, or on the floor of the locker room. I think that a reasonable response would have been to beat the snot out of him, to stop the assault, and then to call the police. I can only imagine that would have made the victim feel better. At least make the victim feel like he wasn't being left to be victimized again. Which I imagine that thought has gone through McQueary's mind again and again and again since that time. And, and I think he likely will not be coaching again. At least not in any meaningful way. And likewise, it's funny because that thought had not initially crossed my mind, and I think that is part of the problem with these types of sexual predators, is they rely on the squeamishness of the public and the general public's lack of desire to actually talk about this kind of sexual predation, and to deal with it head on. It's funny because even in families, this is not uncommon. Sexual assaults are not uncommon. We both know people who've been victims of sexual assault, and but what's common is not talking about it. And so how do we balance not wanting to expose our children to this kind of ugliness, with making sure they understand what kind of situations not to be in. and what kind of situations that they are comfortable, that when they're uncomfortable, that they can come to us, or that they can just simply yell, help, or get out of. Because sexual predators rely on the discomfort of their victims and their victims' lack of desire or inability to actually ask for help or to speak up. And I don't want this to happen to my kids. And so how do I, talk to them generally? You don't get into cars with strange people. But in this case, Sandusky was not a stranger. And so, how do we inform our children that, like, listen, okay, there are creepers out there, and the likelihood is you're going to come across one at some point in your life. And especially with our girl children, and so when you come across one, here's what you do. If you're not comfortable, say no and get out. Don't worry about if you're going to think you're going to hurt their feelings or not. Screw that. Your safety is worth far more than their feelings. So, and so this brings me up to, you're being rather pissed off because you coach youth soccer, obviously have for many years. And now I'm sure you are being, yes, you're right, as a part of youth soccer in Pendleton, you need to address this issue, because the last thing you want is, because you would never do something like this, and you can't imagine other people doing it, is setting up a scenario in which you're sending kids along with somebody who is one of these people. And we all would love to say, oh, well, I would know if that person is like that, and I wish that were the case. But I'm not sure it is. And so I think that you are obligated to, create some policy, as much as I hate policies, to, you have to acknowledge the prevalence of this kind of behavior, of the existence, if not prevalence, the existence of this kind of behavior, and the fact that you guys are going to acknowledge it as an organization and address it as an organization. I think it sucks to have to do it, but we live in a world that has people like Sandusky, and there's a lot of them out there. And again, as long as people who, as long as people don't want to talk about it and don't want to deal with it, they can exist, and they can exist without any fear of arrest or or incident. So I understand why it makes you upset. Last summer, riding to a soccer game up in the cities, we all met in a parking lot, and we were all, there were like 4 people driving, and so all the kids were piling into vans. I had Galen, and these guys are what? Galen's 15, so I had like 4 14-year-olds in my car, Galen and 3 others. And I couldn't drive those 4 kids by myself. I had to have another adult in the vehicle, because Winona Youth Soccer Association, and probably as a subset of Minnesota Youth Soccer Association, has a policy for just that sort of thing. And I actually made fun of it at the time and gave the coach a pretty hard time about it. And I guess I realize why it's there. And, just because I don't think I'm a creeper doesn't mean other people know that I'm not a creeper. So, anyway, and you know, and that's just it. The people, these people are not. They don't think of themselves as abusers. They don't think of themselves as committing sexual assault. And I'm sure when Sandusky says that I'm not guilty of any sexual assault, he believes that. I don't know if you heard any of the interview with, what's his name? The NBC, you know, the god of sports broadcasting, does all the Olympics. You know what I'm talking about, right? He did an interview with Sandusky. I think it was a telephone interview. And I can't imagine why Sandusky's attorney let him do this interview, but the question was put to Sandusky, are you, what was it? Are you a pedophile? And this is exactly how the interview went. He says, are you a pedophile? Sandusky answers immediately, no. Are you sexually attracted to young boys? Pause. Sexually attracted? Yes, sexually attracted. Am I sexually attracted to young boys? Yes. Well, I enjoy the company of young boys. I enjoy, and then he goes on and finally says, well, but no, I'm not sexually attracted to them. I mean, that in and of itself is just, I mean, it's just amazing. I could just see the attorney, you know, saying no, trying to voice to Sandusky just to say no. I mean, it was just Bob, what's his name? The announcer. Anyway, it was anyway, the very fact that he I'm sure thinks of himself as normal, you know, like these behaviors can't seem that odd to other people. They don't, you know, and they're perfectly normal to me. But anyway, so take heart, Dan, and understand that actually the scrutiny and the policies that you guys are going to have to pass I think are good and are necessary, because the more we can acknowledge that this behavior goes on, the more that we can acknowledge that young kids are at risk because of these kind of people. And the more that we can talk about it and talk to the kids as to why these things are going on, maybe that'll decrease the the rate that these things happen. So that's my take. And I think I'm going to go and make some grits and eggs. Like I said, Galen has an orchestra concert in 2 hours. And I guess until then, I am, at least until I swim this Sunday, still dead.